So what has really changed?
Well, you talk about looking out for our own interests. Let me start that. I think that's fine. I'm all for countries acting in their national interests. That's good, because they're going to do that anyway. That's what all countries do, and that's okay. Sometimes I think Americans are the only people who don't like to admit that we act in our own interests. We like to think that only selfish and base countries do something. And we actually do the opposite. We actually sacrifice ourselves in order to help and liberate other countries. The rest of the world doesn't quite see it that way sometimes. I think it's fine for the United States to act in the interests of the United States. My only caveat is, let's stop and think what's really good for us over the long run. And let's not do things that make us feel good right now, but actually wind up harming us. Now, as for the history of the Turkish-American relationship, I think it's a function of Turkey's development as a country. Turkey was founded as essentially a dictatorship under Ataturk. That was a time when the idea of dictatorship was power, was dominant in the world. The age of Lenin, Stalin, Franco, Hitler. But after World War II, dictatorship wasn't acceptable. In order to get into the United Nations, you had to be a multi-party democracy. Turkey did something that I don't know if it's ever been done in any other country. A one-party state voluntarily transformed itself into a multi-party state and held a multi-party election. That was in 1950. And not only that, but the opposition won, and then the party that had been in power ever since the country was founded voluntarily left power. In the 1980s, the new religion of the world was free market economics. So Turgut Özal dismantled the protectionist state and transformed Turkey into a country with an open economy. In the 1990s, human rights became the religion of the world. Turkey also changed its policies then. You remember reading all those stories about people being imprisoned and people in Turkish prisons being tortured and abused. You don't read that anymore. Turkey evolved. And I think that's been the basis of its relation with the United States. Now, during the Cold War, the U.S. saw Turkey as almost a reflexive ally. Turkey would do almost everything the U.S. wanted as long as it didn't have to do with Cyprus or one or two areas where Turkey had special interests. So we began taking Turkey for granted as an automatic ally. And that maybe worked during the Cold War, might work for both countries. But the situation has changed now. And I think it could be good for both countries to find a richer, deeper, and more mutually supportive relationship. Just to mention one other thing, you talked about history, and it's true. I devote at least half my book to telling stories about how Turkey and Iran developed into democracies. These are two countries in the Middle East that have had a constitution for 100 years. Turks and Iranians understand what is an election, what is a political party, what is a parliament, what is a political campaign. These are concepts that are not well understood in most of the rest of the Middle East, and certainly the Islamic Middle East. So the democratic roots of Turkish society really have brought flower now. But I'd like to go back further. I start my book, for example, with a story that I don't think very many people know, about a young American school teacher who went to Iran 100 years ago and was killed fighting in the Democratic Revolution in 1909. It means that American blood was shed in the fight for Iranian democracy. So I'm trying to pick these stories out, partly because I'm fascinated with the unknown stories and the unknown personalities in history. I did some work during my research in the Harry Truman Presidential Library in Missouri. Those presidential libraries are dangerous because there's so much interesting stuff there. You wind up being distracted from your own project, looking at other stuff. Harry Truman used to handwrite a lot of these personal letters, and I found one letter with a fantastic line, and I've adopted this line kind of as a guide for my own writing. Truman wrote, "The only thing new in this world is the history you didn't know." And I've tried to include a lot of that history.
Just would like to follow up on that one. As I said in my question, the relationship has changed and the nature of that relationship has changed, and Turkey has a new perspective. But some people may say, well, it hasn't changed for good. Turkey is doing things that really upset us deeply, including this last UN vote that when Turkey voted no alongside Brazil. And people don't necessarily perceive the change as a good thing, and you are arguing quite the opposite. It seems to me. So,
I see an analogy between what's happening inside Turkey and Turkey's diplomatic posture in Kuwait. Some people, particularly in America, have been writing some very frightened articles about how Turkish society is becoming Islamic. And soon Turkey is going to look just like Iran. This is way overdone. I don't believe that the government of Turkey has a secret plan to Islamicize Turkish society. However, there are many Turks who fear this, and the government has not done enough to reassure them. I think this government has been very positive in its representation of the majority. But democracy is not just about majorities. Democracy is about protecting everybody. I'm not sure that has been enough of a part of current policies. So, although I don't think there's a terrible, secret, subversive plan, many people fear that in Turkey, and the government hasn't done enough to reassure them. Now, in foreign policy, we're also reading stories saying that Turkey's drifting away from the United States and becoming a frenemy, as they call it. I don't think that's true either. But Turkey has not done enough to reassure its old friends in the United States. Turkey has to be very clear that we still want to play a mediator role. Turkey should be talking if it wants to guarantee Iranian security, nor also by guaranteeing Israeli security. I think Turkey has to bear some of the blame. The Turkish leaders have to bear some of the blame for the friction that's emerged between the U.S. and Turkey, because Turkey has not done enough to reassure us that actually what it's doing is positive for us. And I think that's the way we got to look at it. You know, if Turkey is perceived as being in lockstep with the United States, it loses its credibility in the rest of the Islamic world. It's actually good for us if there's perceived to be some distance between Turkey and the United States, as long as that distance is only over tactics and not over strategic moves. So I don't see Turkey drifting away from its moorings. I do, however, think that the fact that the European Union slammed its door in Turkey's face, essentially, is a factor in all of this. I ask myself, if that hadn't happened, if Europe had been more welcoming and encouraging to Turkey and saying, oh, definitely want to take you in and just keep fulfilling the Copenhagen criteria, and when you get there, we'll embrace you, would Turkey be doing all of this with Iran and Gaza? Maybe not. Maybe Turkey would be devoting all of its geopolitical energy to anchoring itself in the European project. But that didn't happen, and I do think that's part of the reason why a growing and ambitious and more assertive and more self-confident Turkey is playing its geopolitical role more convincingly.
We can open the floor for questions, please. If you could state your name, you won't need the mic.
Michael Percy, just come back from Israel on the other side of what you're talking about. I'm curious about your comments concerning Iran and also Turkey. Talking about these societies that speak in democracy. I haven't seen democracy in Iran since I don't know when. Showers in the dictatorship, not with the dictatorship. In Turkey, the government was overthrown in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 96. Now I see everyone, a little bit like Nasser, screaming to the Arab world. I remember when Nasser was in the 50s, he was leading the Arab world. He just saw Lithuania, Islam. And you say that people are concerned with what's going on in Turkey. I have family in Turkey, uncle in Istanbul, who are very much concerned with the veil and they see Turkey moving closer to Iran and so on. I'm also very concerned about the society which translates Mein Kampf and the Holocaust of the Elder of Zion and endorses the sale of these books. That's a concern. So I'm wondering where do you see this democracy and so on, the things that we share. I know Iranians, I know I was in Iran in 1970. Certainly they like the United States, they like democracy. I haven't seen democracy.
Very interesting and very apt question. First of all, I don't mean to imply that the democracy I see in Iranian society is represented in the government. I just think that Iran is a very vibrant democratic society. In fact, I believe that under the right circumstances, if you could somehow peel back the layer of this religious regime, Iran could very easily vault over Turkey